Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Welcome to another edition of Security Talk. My name is Gideon, and tonight it's, myself and Brian, joined by retired Lieutenant General Lennit Max, who is back for another episode, as well as Dennis, and we'll get to the introductions in a moment. I had some audio problems, but those have now been resolved, hence us being 2 minutes late, and I think everyone can hear us. So welcome and thank you for joining us. General, thank you for coming back.
Good evening. Can you hear me? You are very, very soft.
Can hear you
very well.
Loud and clear. Dennis, good evening. And
hi, good evening. No, I hear you loud and clear.
Fantastic. And if you don't mind, just give us a short intro. The general has been on. So we've got his biography, but just a short background on yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm a former brigadier, retired from the SAPS, but I'm just listening in tonight. It's my first experience with this, so I'm just basically listening in tonight and see what's happening on this program.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. I hope you enjoy your roller coaster ride with us tonight, and good evening to everybody in the comments section as well. Brian, you had some amazing questions you sent through to me, but built around the discussion tonight regarding the National Commissioner as well as the Minister and the relationship vis-a-vis the two of them. General, your opinion on this present situation and what's going on, plus that effect on the SAPS.
Yes, Gideon, and good evening to each and everyone who's actually listening in and watching this program. We have read recently in the newspapers about the Minister and the National Commissioner in regard to appointments as well as pending court cases, which is between the National Commissioner and National Commissioners, where the National Minister wanted to intervene, and the National Commissioner, on the other hand, drew the National Minister's attention to his constitutional responsibilities. Now, we have to substantiate what I'm going to say, and that is that in terms of the Constitution of South Africa, in terms of Section 206.1, the National Minister got only the responsibility and powers to implement policy, to create policy and to direct the South African Police Service. On the other hand, is the National Commissioner, in terms of Section 207.2, appointed by the President to manage the South African Police Service. Now, in terms of the Constitution, there's only one politician who can actually appoint police officers and an officer, and that is the President in terms of Section 207.1, which states very clearly that the President will appoint a man or woman in charge of the South African Police Service. Now, the Minister created or implemented the South African Police regulations with regards to promotions and appointments. And in terms of Section 47 of the regulations, it is clearly stated in numerous of the subsections, and in particular, Section 47.1K, which states that from the rank upwards of brigadier upwards, that the National Commissioner can only make such appointments after, in consultation with the Minister, which means that the Minister have to agree. If it was after consultation, then he had only the obligation to inform the Minister in that regard, and then whether the Minister agree or not, he can go ahead and make the appointments. But in this case, it's clearly stated that 1K, that it must be in consultation. Now, that is where the problem lies. Now, as far as Commissioner Sitoli is concerned, and I totally agree with his viewpoints, I don't want to entertain or to dwell on the merit of his actions with certain officers within the service. But as far as the administration of the police is concerned, he is empowered in terms of the Constitution to do exactly that. That is the operational leg, as well as the managing the administration of the police. And the minister has no say in the appointment or transfers of that. But Regulation 47K was actually formed and created to open up a back door for the minister to come in and to have a say in the management of the police. That is dangerous. And the regulations is inferior to the Constitution. And that is where Sitole actually, got his powers from, to say, listen here, I'm the National Commissioner, and this is my responsibility, and you don't have the powers to interfere in my day-to-day running of the South African Police Service, which I, as a former provincial commissioner, totally agree with him. Now, the danger of that regulation 1471K, 471K, is that we have heard at the Zondo Commission how cadre deployment was implemented and what the effect of cadre deployment had in the police as well as in other administrations. And that 471K is a door to open up and to allow political appointments, of which the National Commissioner might not be happy with, and people might be appointed who doesn't have the skill, and the necessary training to assist him to execute his constitutional mandate. So we also know recently, last week, I read a letter where SAPS, the South African Police Union, wrote to the president in connection with this dispute between the minister as well as the National Commissioner, and actually, share their concerns and urge the president to address this issue in the best interest of the country and as well as the members of the service.
So, General, if I may sort of bounce in here with a question, as is my wont, but and I want to draw on your legal knowledge, but also your experience in terms of having been in Parliament as well. To my mind, certainly, the minister has no excuse. He's been in the role of the National Commissioner, so he should, by virtue of that, have, at least certainly from a theoretical point of view, have a full understanding of the constitutional requirements that go with the office of the National Commissioner. Okay. But from a parliamentary perspective and an oversight perspective, surely there are methods which can be brought into play to discipline him, to bring him back into line, because it certainly seems, again, from my lay perspective, is that he is operating far beyond the realms of his office in terms of this, and it is up to Parliament to apply some discipline here. Surely.
Yeah, that's correct. The Parliament got its code of conduct for parliamentarians, and the ministerial handbook also provides certain rules and regulations and for the ministers how to act. Quite correct that if you look at just recently, I think it was the incident at Camps Bay, where the minister, when there was a foreign country was busy was filming a movie or whatever the case may be, and the minister did beach patrols, beach patrols. He led an operation also in contradiction with the Constitution, and unlawfully so, because politicians cannot lead operations, police operations. And there was this misunderstanding and pending court case as a result of the instruction which the minister gave, which was totally an overreach, ministerial overreach, because he doesn't have that powers. The minister must realize that his powers is less than that of a student constable in the police. So he doesn't have any operational powers. A student constable got more operational powers in arresting powers than the minister. However, I'm actually a bit disappointed in the city of Cape Town, who actually settled that out of court. You know, I would have loved the case to proceed to court, and then they should actually ask for a personal court order against the minister in order to have legal clarity and certainty, and to that the court actually direct the minister so that he can stay in his lane, because he's clearly out of his lane. But
that would have been awesome.
Apart from the legal consequences in a civil way, that Parliament got also the rules, the code of conduct for parliamentarians. And I was informed that the DA also laid the charge there, a complaint at the Rules Committee or the Disciplinary Section Committee of Parliament. And that might be a subject of investigation at the moment. But the problem with the police, let me tell you, it's a disgrace. The time when I was in the police, people had pride, you know, to wear that uniform. We had certain strict rules. You couldn't smoke in a uniform. You couldn't eat in a uniform in public. You couldn't wear private clothes together with your uniform, and you couldn't even push a trolley in a uniform. Today, everything, you know, which we were prohibited to do is being allowed. But the problem came in and started when this government appointed civilians directly in charge of the South African Police Service, who had no training, received no training, no experience of police experience, and it's a total disaster. It started with Jackie Selebe. When I was the provincial commissioner, I was the only provincial commissioner who actually opposed the dissolvement of area officers, as well as specialized units, etc., as well as the public order police service, which they actually depleted to work as crime prevention units and not as a unit. I opposed that, and when I left in 2003, within 3 months, all those things were actually dissolved. You know, because his reasoning was the Constitution doesn't make provision for area officers. It's only talk about stations and provinces. And I explained to him to say those other officers is being implemented as a managerial tool, you know, to make sure that there's proper supervision, you know, and control, because everything cannot be done at provincial office. But nevertheless, after I left, within 3 months, it was dissolved, and it is still a disaster. After that, they appointed the minister, the current minister, who was the MEC and KwaZulu-Natal for Community Safety, as the National Commissioner. And with his appointment was the civilian rank from commissioner, inspector, director changed to that of general and colonel and captain, back to the military ranks, with the understanding and the expectation, once you change the rank, there will be more respect for the police, which was definitely not the case. And you know, and everybody knows, he was removed as a result of certain allegations. And thereafter, it was Ria Behega, who was a social worker. They appointed the social worker in charge of the police, and we had the Marikane and all the other things which goes along with it. And that is where we actually are at the moment. It's a mess. as a result of those things which is done and corruption which is going on, that the trust in the police is being deteriorated to the extent that people put more confidence in private security than the South African Police Service.
So
Can I jump in before you,
just,
Brian?
just hang on 1 second,
Okay.
because I think here's a very good segue in terms of what you just said now, with which I fully agree. And we established that last time. We share that opinion in terms of the journey the police has taken and it not being a positive one. And sorry, just a quick shout out to John Ross, who was also one of the officers in the West Metropole Undertakers, who the General referred to in our last discussion. So coming back to this apolitical, or at least a strive for having an apolitical element to the police, combined with this truism, something that you've alluded to, well, no, you've stated it very clearly, is that people who do not have that unique experience, which is not replicable in any other industry or life profession or career choice than being in the police. You have to understand the police, you have to have been a police officer, policeman, policewoman, a police member, right? Because of that very unique nature and experience level, dictating who should be the leadership of such an organization. Maybe it's time that we take this, and again, this is just my opinion, and I'm certainly looking to your response to it, is we take this requirement for a civilian minister of police off the table and create a police commissioner who can stand aside from that, so that they can be a true apolitical office and have a real understanding of policing, and thus obviating or avoiding the ability to have a civilian person put into the office of national commissioner or provincial commissioner, for that matter. I don't know what your thoughts are of that.
Yeah, you know, the police regulations make it very clear that each and every police officer might vote actually and be a member of any or affiliated to any political party of choice, but you cannot exercise your duties accordingly, and you should be actually apolitical or, as they say, informed citizen, not a politician, but the informed citizen, because you have to take note what the political climate outside is. But the system which we have at the moment of a minister politically oversee and guiding and creating policies for the police and represent the police in a political capacity in cabinet is not something new. It is something which is the world over in various countries, more or less the same concept. So it's not necessarily that the police is actually contaminated with politics because the political head is a politician. The problem which we have with this understanding, which you actually explained to us at the moment, is that Jackie Selebe, and well as Becky Kelly, the minister, current minister, they were politicians, you know, politicians put in top of the police to manage the police. In other words, the police became very political orientated in the way that they actually police our communities, and it's also seen as a result as it's an ANC police instead of a police service for the people, irrespective of your political affiliation, and that make it problematic for the credibility of the police and the trust in the police, because you will see there's certain instances where certain political parties contravene the law and then the police are soft on them. But on the other hand, you will see that pensioners who's standing as SASSA officers in Bellville or the media or the restaurateurs who actually, had a march in Cape Town, they are being bombarded with water cannons and rubber bullets and so forth. So that creates the perception that if you belong to a certain political party, that you will be treated with gloves, and once you are in the opposite, then they will actually come to you with full force. But the thing is, you have in each and every country a ministerial office, a political office, who accounts and report to the presidents on policing and policing-related matters. Not necessarily that the police is contaminated with politics, but you must make sure that there's a clear distance between the political office and the operational land. And Section 47 1K of the regulations, of Regulation 47 1K, is in contrast with the independence of the police management versus the politics, because that leaves the door open for political interference into police operations and management.
That's Brian actually did kind of chipped in with exactly what I wanted to say, but just to they say great minds think alike and idiots never differ. But on exactly the discussion that you just unpacked here, General. So it's possible, it's probably impossible for any person, be they an ordinary civilian and citizen, or be they a member of the police service, to be completely apolitical. So finding ways to manage and mitigate against that is not impossible, and has been done successfully the world over, and has also been successfully done in this country. However, that backdoor sort of way of mechanism that the minister can use to directly interfere in the day-to-day operation of the police service is, I don't think I can emphasize to the viewers just the dangerous. It's a complete. It goes completely against two things. It goes against the separation of powers of the South African Police Service as a non-political entity that is there to serve its constitutional mandate, firstly. And secondly, the additional problem with it is it goes against the very concept of good corporate governance, as laid out by the various King Commission reports, that applies to the private sector, and by implication also applies to the public sector, that the minister's there in oversight. He has a very much political position. He is not, as you've pointed out, qualified, nor should he have the power to interfere in the day-to-day operations. What effect has this had on service delivery practically? Because, as you've already mentioned, he has been involved in operations. He's gone and shut down that filming set. That could not have been good for morale. It couldn't have been good for service delivery.
That's right, Gideon. That first of all, as I alluded to earlier on, and that is that, the image which the minister portrays outside in public is that he's in charge of the police, which is not the case. His involvement in the police administration has the potential for two possible problems. The one is that members in the police would who actually experience the minister's involvement and the subservient position of the National Commissioner, those who is actually responsible and accountable to the National Commissioner, swing more or less their loyalty to the minister, because they think they get the protection and ignore and erode the authority of the National Commissioner. That happens to me. Once you've got people who's political orientated in the service, and that very party official is being appointed as minister or in a powerful position on top of you, then these guys who actually serve under your command tend to ignore your instructions, and because they've got the backup of those above you. And that can lead the current conflict in the police is also in a particular way related to what I'm actually saying. That some might feel more loyal to the minister because the minister's in charge and they interpreted his position as he got the final say over everything. Just an example, currently with Jeremy Veery's dismissal, there was a call from one of the politicians here, Jacob East Jacobs, who called on the president to interfere and to restore Jeremy Veery in his position. The president even can't do it. It will be unconstitutional to interfere because that is an administrative function which resorts under the National Commissioner. And any dispute and any challenge to his administrative action must be done in terms of the remedies available to them in terms of law. And that means it's arbitration. If they are not happy with arbitration, then the labor court or the labor appeal court, the labor appeal court, or ultimately the SCA. So that is the one thing. So you cannot call on the minister to interfere or the president to intervene in that particular case. But the president correctly, as requested by SAPS, can intervene at that particular, the top level, because he appointed the National Commissioner, and he can fire the National Commissioner if they follow the Police Act in terms of disciplinary action against the National Commissioner, which is different from any other member of the police service. A National Commissioner and a Provincial Commissioner is appointed in terms of a contract, and their disciplinary actions against them is totally different, and that can be done only by means of a commission of inquiry. All right, that is the one thing. On the other hand, in the police, with this fight against each other in internal junior officers against the National Commissioner, and National Minister is, lockerheads, has automatically negative effect on the morale of members. I was a student constable, a sergeant, a warrant officer, a lieutenant, a captain, a major, lieutenant, colonel, a full colonel, a brigadier, major general, and ultimately a general. Now, once you're in the police got a specific culture. You look up to your leaders. They either inspire you so that you can become like them, or they give direction, or they disappoint you. And at this particular point in time, with whatever we are reading about corruption, the infightings in provinces and senior officers with the National Commissioner with the minister, obviously has a direct impact on the morale of the members who are supposed to focus on service delivery. That is the one thing. On the other hand, the confidence which the public must have in the police is another thing. It is already in the previous interview which we had. I referred to the Victims of Crime Survey of 2018, which states that for the past 6 years, there was a drop of trust in the police and satisfaction in the police with 8% to the level of 54%. Now, that was 2018. And subsequently, we had a lot of senior officers in the police who were actually now, accused of corruption. And we had this fighting. No, I won't be surprised that that particular percentage of distrust in the police is even, bigger. So service delivery is suffering. And I'm glad that in the Western Cape government, the DA government, what they did, they were very clever. While they experienced this, detractions in the police, and non-availability of police and the ineffectiveness of the police, they invested now in the LEAP project, the Law Enforcement Advance project, where they employ now people as law enforcement officers and with the same powers, because law enforcement officers got now the same powers as police, as to execute arrests and so forth. So they is doing that, and they've got now control with the city on the deployment, the management, and the funding of those services, and that is huge force multipliers of which they have got direct power and control over. Unlike in the situation of the South Africa Police Service, who's been controlled from a national level. Now, I was all these years in favor of a decentralization of the police. I believe that once you've got a decentralization in terms of like other departments in the provinces, like social development, finance and sport and whatever, where the provinces manage the police, appoint the people, the recruitment processes, but it is the policy is only on a national level. And that is like Britain, that is in America. It can be done here. It can be done. And I guarantee you, if that is been done, you will see the caliber of police officers in the Western Cape will be much better than any other province. I had an insight in the police, and I know what is the quality available in the police. So I'm actually glad that the DA Western Cape government actually took the initiative of implementing that process, and if they manage it properly, it would actually help our communities out there tremendously in saving lives.
So, General, here's a quick question, and I just want to tag on to something you said, because you mentioned the unique culture that we had, certainly when both you and I were in the police together. And a lot of that, the tone of that culture was set by the operational officers. And I'm coming back to your point where I can recall some amazingly good officers. I'm talking, I'll mention a few people like Captain James Such, who was one of my direct commanders, Colonel Johan Maria, who was another one of my direct commanders, Captain Johan Snyder, Colonel September, who was one of my commanders on Operation Neptune. And I can track commanders, and then of course also Colonel de Toy, who was a station commissioner at Hermanus, who was a great leader. And I can track all of that level of leadership excellence all the way up through to yourself, certainly when I was serving. I certainly can't track it as far as any of the ministers, because from my perspective, I didn't care who the minister was. I worked for my commander, who worked for my provincial commander, which is how it should be. So what advice would you give an officer that sort of captain up through to colonel level serving today that they can do to try and recapture and recreate some of that very unique and very positive culture that definitely set the tone in leadership development in the police?
Yeah, you see, once you're in the police, you are captured. It's like politics. In politics, when you join politics, you say that you want to change the world. And once you're there, you will realize, no, this political party got a particular framework which you have to operate in, and you can't. You get your mandate from there. So in the police as well, police got standing orders, they've got national orders and instructions, and so forth, which manage the police correctly. You must have it, otherwise you are not in control of the service. Now, you can only do as much as you are allowed to do. Even a provincial commissioner doesn't have a blanket check to implement and to create units and strategies to address the challenges in that specific province as he or she wish. No, not at all, because there's certain instructions that they have to abide with, and they have to execute it accordingly. So you are actually, micromanaged from the top level, and that is also once you are at a station level, that you're, or at the cluster level. There's no districts, I believe. Some of them are districts. You are managed under the direction of your deputy provincial commissioner, and the stations are managed by the cluster or the district commissioner, and the station commander manages the shifts and all those under him or her. So you've got only a specific limited space to move into and to develop. The focus nowadays, especially when Jackie Selepe started, there's a very negative practice which Jackie Selepe brought in. Now, I was trained, and I must say, fortunately or unfortunately, it depends how you interpret it. I was trained in the apartheid era, and there are when people are being arrested, they refer to the apartheid police, who is now in charge. I can't help when I joined the police that time. It was a calling for me, but I was trained then, to admonish your men and women in private and praise them in public. Now, Jackie Selepe had the Jackie Selepe trials, where he will actually jump on senior officers and embarrass them in front of junior officers. And that culture, that practice was brought down from national office to provincial offices and to area offices, sectors and so on, where senior officers in charge embarrass other senior officers, station commanders, and commissioners in the presence of their juniors. Now, I was trained that your junior senior officer is representing you in your absence. And if I embarrass or attack his credibility, then obviously I break down his authority or her authority in the eyes of their juniors. And then you get a situation where you find now that discipline is almost non-existent in the police. The other thing which also worked very negatively into police morale is when the white and the coloreds and Indians, some Indians get promotion nowadays, but there are the whites and coloreds, they are almost 30, 20 years in one rank. The juniors which they recruited is now the brigadiers and the generals. And that thing I brought to the attention of the minister when I was advised. I said to you that I came across at station level when I consulted with the CPFs and the station management officers, which I told them, I said, but you, when I was provincial commissioner, you were captain. He said, yes. I said, how long? 22 years. And the people he recruited and as recruits were brigadiers. He and they had to salute them, but still they were very positive. Now, the promotion system is another thing which doesn't assist really the officers for development. There's a certain group, a certain race group has been advanced, and at the expense of more experienced people. And that thing needs to be addressed. I understand that affirmative action there might be a reason for it. And I also, I must say, benefited out of that approach. But I was put in position before I get to the top position in the shadow of a more senior person who gave me some guidance, and I took the best from them, and I rejected the bad things of that particular person. And after a year or 2 years, then I was promoted to the next level. So I was not promoted from a sergeant to a full colonel to a general. So that was not what I received. But promotions is also a real issue in the police, and demoralize the members. And I can't see there's a real, a fair process in this type of promotions to to boost the morale of the members and to create them an opportunity for development.
So, General, if I may, and I'm so glad you touched on the promotions issue, because that's going to kind of speak to a question I want to ask. But before I ask that, I'm going to sound like a little bit, or be a little bit at risk of sounding like a fanboy of yours, which I am, and I've said that, and I've said that consistently for a long time. But there's no police officer who served under your command who would say anything other than your command and was deserved, and your leadership was excellent. So with that said, you were talking about promotions and the unfairness of it. And last week, or sorry, 2 weeks ago now, we were discussing the reservist and kind of how the reservists and how that system has collapsed, and how upset that made you. And one of the reasons certainly that I can see having led to that collapse was the disastrous decision to take away rank promotions in reservists. I think it was in about 2018, some person made the decision that reservists would no longer have a rank. If they'd been recruited in or came in, their rank would be reservist, as those who had already been promoted would retain their rank, but those who hadn't would henceforth be reservists. Do you have any insight into who made that decision?
Brian, I don't know about that in particular, but let me say what is my understanding of the reservists. The time when I was, I think I was a director at that stage when you people operated at area West Metropole. I was the deputy of Commissioner Quentin Visser, and we had a very active, the undertakers, a very active a unit with their own rank system. I think there was a lieutenant colonel in charge of the undertakers. But let me say, when I took up office in 2018 as the advisor of the minister, one of the things which I attended to was the reservist policy. When I read the policy, I immediately realized that this policy is a disaster. It is, instead of assisting the police, it is actually the opposite, in the sense that I identified two major issues. And the one is that one requirement was, maybe it still is that you must have a permanent job. And I pointed out to the National Commissioner and the Minister, and I drafted a memorandum, and to say that these youngsters who graduate at colleges and universities and who's unemployed, they are not unemployed by choice. They are unemployed by circumstances. And at that time, it was 27.8% was the unemployment rate. And I said to them, if that we need to change that thing, that and afford an opportunity to these youngsters, instead of sitting at home and later join the gangs, that we make them employable. Give them some dignity, let them actually join us, the police, and curbing crime. And by virtue of this course and training, they can become employable into the security environment, until such time that they feel that they can apply for another job. The other thing is, if you were a director or employee of a security company, you were also prohibited to become a reservist. And I also pointed out to them that this is the very people which we use as force multipliers because we got the same enemy, and you disqualify them to be part of you, but you use them. So I don't know sometimes whether the people know exactly what they want to achieve. That I doubt it. I doubt it. And I think really to take away the rank, the reservists didn't get a salary, a stipend. It's only in certain circumstances when there is elections and stuff, then they get a stipend for the hours they work or for the couple of days that they work. They get a stipend for that. There's no salary. And I'm of the view that to give somebody the rank it is encouragement, and it motivates people to grow in the rank and to qualify for the next level and the next level. And I'm personally of the view, if I'm the minister, that I will only recruit police officers who are reservists. That is my thing. Because if you feel that you want to serve our communities and put your life at risk for no money, then obviously I must give you first preference to become a fully fledged police officer, because it is clear to me that it is a calling for you to serve the community and not only a job to get a salary. And it's for that reason that we sit with criminals in the South African police service. So you don't know, you fear as the police come to your home, because you don't know whether they bring stuff with them to say they found it in your house and lock you up because there's a particular political motive or a different motive to embarrass you, whether they're going to steal something from your house when they leave. So you sit with it. So I think the sifting process is not necessarily this new draft police bill, which they brought out with to scan and all these things, is good to have it. But I think the sifting process should be take from the reservists on the recommendations of the station commissioners and the hours work with for no money, and put your life at risk to serve our country.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's the quote of the evening. It might amuse you to know that well, certainly it's an indicative of a lot of the failure, not only of the senior management but also the middle management. Gideon and I went through a little exercise when we collected, I think it was in 2016. We had a group of about 12 commercial pilots who were qualified all the way through helicopters. There were, I think, two or three instructor pilots in this, many of whom had access to their own airframes. And we took that to the air wing down in Cape Town, and we're told by their commander that the air wing had no use for this group of very experienced pilots, and that they weren't interested in recruiting them as reservists. So yes, there's clearly a lot that has gone wrong. But another really cool quote to have is just, oh, sorry, Gideon, I'll let you go.
No. You finish the quote, because we might only have time for one more in-depth question, and I have one that the general might be interested in answering. But you go.
Okay, so I just wanted to highlight the general referred to one of the lieutenant colonels who commanded that group called the Undertakers. He is in the chat, Lieutenant Colonel John Ross. He was one of their commanders as well. So, John, it's nice to see you in there. Anyway, Gideon, back to you.
So basically, skirting past all the negatives and challenges, because I think it's been well quantified that we are sitting with a government that is completely out of touch what policing is and what policing means, what community policing is, what the Pelian principles of policing is, and the foundation of a relationship of trust and mutual respect between police officers who are ordinary citizens that are on a professional full-time basis performing their duties with concern to law and law enforcement and that relationship with citizens. With all these challenges being faced, and there is definitely room for civil society to take hands with the good police officers left in the service who may be feeling a little bit abandoned and alone at this stage, to try and get some meaningful change into that organization. Because politicians respond to two things, right? It's either force or pressure. So we can bring the pressure from civil society. What would you suggest, General, pertaining, but firstly, some words of encouragement, I suppose, to those still stuck in that organization, maybe, if you have any? And also, how do you think we can go forward with getting meaningful change? What tools would you use? What strategy would you use? Or what would you suggest?
Gideon, you're quite right. You know, if you look on the point which you raised with the communities. Now, I'm really a community-orientated person, irrespective of whether I was in the police or in politics. I will also fight the cause of the communities, because I believe that when I took the oath, it was to serve our communities. And as a police officer, I was prepared to die, you know, to give my life in the protection of other people, even those I didn't know at the time. And as a politician, I was the voice of those who couldn't be at the parliament where the issues were dealt. And that sometimes made me very unpopular. But nevertheless, as long as I was satisfied that I addressed the community needs. You see, the police operates on a public mandate, community mandate. They got their mandate from the communities. Now, the first police force was established in 1827 by Sir Robert Peel, you know, a parliamentarian in the British Parliament. Now, from there, but before that police service was created and formalized, it was the communities actually who police themselves and regulate themselves in terms of these neighborhood watches in that fashion, actually. You know, and from there, the saying that out of the community for the community, and that is now the police service. So we need, we cannot, we as a police service cannot police on their own. They need community, you know, input. The police can only stabilize the situation, and I believe the normalization of environment can only be done by the community themselves. But for the community, as I indicated earlier on, where your trust in the police, public trust in the police, is at the level of 54%. Now that is low, and that was in 2018. You can expect it is even less. It might be less than 50%. We need to change that, and the only way that you can change that is once somebody get to the police station. No one goes there to the police station, in my experience, to say, but you look smart and, you know, I just want to hang around here, whatever the case may be. They go there because they're in need. Their rights are being, you know, entrenched and interfered with. And then come to the police with the belief that the police will assist. And once we've got a police officers who realize what is their constitutional mandate and act in a professional manner, promptly, effectively, and treat people with respect and dignity, then we will gain their trust, and we will have a better community policing relationship. On the other hand, you sit with police officers, a majority of them who are dedicated. They want to make a difference in their communities, but they are distracted by all these shenanigans. Now, as they say in Afrikaans, a vis vrot van sy kop af. In my view, to come back to your question, how are we going to address this to see whether we can change it? I don't think that the problem is insurmountable. I always have hope that the police can change because I really love the police. And I believe if you look at what is Shamila Batoy of the National Prosecuting Authority, she inspires me. She, inherited a rotten structure. But she had a mandate to change things from the president. And she is on course, I believe. And there's a lot of, some people are, is impatient to say that things must happen now. But you see, it's easy and quick to break down a structure. It's difficult to build or rebuild it again to a level which is professional and we can and we've got the competency. Now, in the South African Police Service, you really need not only a career police officer who is in finance or logistics. No, you need somebody, you need fresh blood in the police now. The whole top management, fresh blood. People who's not been contaminated with any, allegations of malfeasance, corruption, or politically inclined people, but people who can deal independently. Appoint a national commissioner who've got the guts to take decisions, who is clean, and allow him or her to appoint people of caliber within the service. And even those who left as a result of political reasons or which has not been fired, with a bad record, but to bring them back, and really build a capacity in the police and assess all those other commanders at station level, provincial level, in terms of what is envisaged in the National Development Plan 2030. The National Development Plan put the bar really, really high. It indicates there that the police should develop a professional code of conduct. And each member should write exams with regards to that personal code of conduct. And if failed, they should be fired. That is what the plan says. And commission officers, if they are not up to standard, should lose their commission ranks. Now that is in the code of in the development plan. Now the question is, that plan came out, I think, in 2012, but none of those things has been implemented. And I think if the government or the police follow those directions, and the government under the political direction of the ministers or the ministers who was in the past there implemented it, we would have been at a much better space as what we found ourselves at this point in time. So I believe with the right management, the right leadership, the right capacity, and no political interference in appointments, or any of the managerial aspects which has been dealt with and the responsibility of the National Commissioner, we can turn around the South African Police Service to be once again a professional one. We had this transition from pre 1994 to post 1994, and during that transition, there was a lot be done to change the police image from an oppressor to a protector, from an enemy to a friend, by means of the bringing in the community structures in the decision-making process. But as a result of poor leadership in the police, we are at this particular level where we found ourselves now, where we even don't trust the people we should run to. When we are in trouble, we run away from them to private security for protection.
Commissioner, thank you. Well, rather, General, thank you. And Brian, thank you. And thank you for everyone tuning in tonight. We've just hit an hour, but there's so many interesting discussions about this, especially the solution-orientated one, which I think would be an episode on its own. So as per the usual, General, we'd love to have you back in a couple of weeks, 2 or so weeks, if you are keen, because and then we can probably unpack that, unless something spectacularly controversial has happened that is more newsworthy, and we're going to be talking about that instead. But I think that would be a great topic. Brian, any inputs on that?
No, I fully agree. I think that would be awesome, and I think maybe at some other point, General, we need to get the band back together. We need to get as many people who served in around about the general time that the two of us did, and we can sit down one evening and exchange stories about the good old days. And then we can all feel really old.
Yeah.
But no, other than that, I think what Gideon said, having you back to discuss something more sensible would be a really great stream.
Yeah, and you'll probably
You're
get a lot
welcome.
of invites from more from other channels as well, hopefully, because this is a great topic of discussion. I think this is something that needs a lot more airtime, and yeah, it would be good. So thank you, General, for your time. We very much appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much. You're welcome.
And then we'll definitely have you back on. To all of you tuned in tonight, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. See you soon. You'll see me again. Well, bye, General. We'll see you with Temba Kubeka and Khofo Kwape on Thursday night, talking about black gun ownership in South Africa, because that's second episode. And then Brian and I will probably do some sort of nonsense at some point when he's not working his butt off.
We don't have nonsense. Actually,
Yes.
we've got some really cool things to be done soon, but hopefully next week or so, which will be a great surprise. We might just chat with Mr. KJK. You're going to be speaking to Double K with Timber next week, but we might speak with the infamous KJK, and we'll let you all guess at that one pretty soon as well.
Well, that's well, you've got me guessing. I have no idea who that is, but I'm sure. Well, I probably will be able to figure it out.
Your brain's not working today.
It's been a long day.
Ever do. Okay,
Exactly.
and again, as always, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please make sure you're sorting out your training. Please make sure you're sorting out all of your firearms rights. And again, do remember this: a right that is not used is not exercised and will soon be taken away from you. So make sure it doesn't happen.
Yep, it's a muscle, and so far we've been flexing it hard, but we better keep on doing that.
And it's
Have
a
wonderful
muscle,
evening.
not like muscle memory, which doesn't exist.
Indeed. Soundbite of the night. Folks, have a good evening. Stay safe. See you on Thursday.